Hey, Cadre. Happy Monday to everybody. I hope that you are having a good Monday morning and that you had a good weekend. I'm Rosie Nest, and I talk to you about life loss and layoffs. So today what we're going to talk about is, I was just wrapping up my journaling that I try to do every Monday morning. I don't do it super consistently, and I don't beat myself up about that, but whenever I do it and really set up my week in that way, I feel a lot more focused. I feel like I have a roadmap. I feel like I just have some center in my week. So I just am wrapping that up, which has been good. I've had kind of a busy week, and then I had a really not busy weekend, which was lovely. And sometimes you need those spaces of rest. I am somebody who is go, and I definitely prescribe myself as like an Enneagram 3 achiever and test that way if you're familiar with Enneagram. Hi Andy, hi Speak Wonder. And it's been a real journey for me to learn how to rest and how to just be present and not feel like I need to achieve. And so this weekend was one of those weekends where my family and I didn't have very much going on, and I've just learned to love it more. I think a past version of myself would have been like, why aren't we like meeting up with people? Why aren't we going out to eat? Why aren't we like packing in everything before the end of summer? And this weekend, like, we saw one group of friends, and then we just had family time, and that was incredible. Like, it was just really nice to have and be in a slower season. But it also has to be intentional. I feel, for me, as someone who is a recovering achiever, I really have to think about how I prioritize my time. I really have to think about my intentions and like why I'm doing something, so that I don't feel like I'm not doing enough, if that makes sense. So the theme for August, as we're wrapping up August, is savor. And so with savoring, I've been thinking about savoring times of transition, like a layoff. And that's a really hard sentence to say, to try to savor a season of layoff. I was laid off. I've been laid off twice. So the first time I was laid off was when my husband and I had just gotten married. I was working at a marketing agency, and my husband was not working. He was going to business school full time. And we didn't have any children. It was just the two of us and our dog. And I got laid off. I didn't get any sort of like padding or severance or anything like that. It was just done that day. And it was incredibly stressful. And the wild thing about that moment was it was a job that I knew wasn't right for me. Like, it was kind of like butting heads with who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, but I needed a job because I was the only person in my family working. And so I was pushing through, and I wasn't going to leave because I needed that job. I was looking for other opportunities, but hadn't quite synced anything up yet. And the next morning, like the day after I got laid off, the next morning I woke up and I went for a walk, and I felt a bunch of sun shining on my face, just like kind of peeking through the clouds. And I started crying because I was so happy. I was so happy because I was no longer in that role and in the opportunity. And so it was like, oh my gosh, I'm savoring this moment because I'm really grateful for it, even though I need to find a job and I don't have an income, but I'm just like grateful in this moment. And so I think of that moment often because that could, and for a lot of people and in a lot of other moments in my life, might have been, the worst. And I think had I been listening to some of the signs and signals around me and really listening to what I really wanted and needed, I would have come to the conclusion sooner and pushed myself into, really leaving that role and leaving that opportunity. But the fact that I was forced out and then had this day of clarity, really gratitude and instant clarity, was really telling. And so I went into that next chapter really savoring and really thinking about and really being cognizant about, like, what is it that I really want? And what sort of work do I really want to do? And if I go into this next opportunity and I haven't learned or haven't like taken enough space to find some peace with what has happened around the layoff, then I think I'm going to get started on the wrong foot. So just savoring that in-between time, I think, is transformative. It's really hard, but it's really valuable. The second time I got laid off, which was more recent, was a little bit different. So I had been working at this organization for about 5 years, and it was a role that I loved. And I was responsible for really building and creating and imagining the function and building, creating, and navigating the team that did it. And so I was leading a lot of people, and I thought we were doing a lot of really good work, and I was really excited about it and was getting really good reviews and praise. And I went on my maternity leave for my daughter, who's now 2.5. And I remember like reading a lot about how to go on maternity leave the right way, meaning like have these things prepared and make sure that you're at the top of minds of other people's minds, so that when you come back, you're like put onto projects, and make sure that you shouldn't be working, but like you could just send a few emails on your maternity leave to make sure that you're top of mind for people. And I was doing all of those things, and really felt like I was following the rule book. And honestly, I was excited to go back to work after my leave. Hi Shannon, just how you joined. I was really excited to go back to work after my leave and kind of learn this new phase of like motherhood and working, and like what is that like. And I know that it's a lot of things, but I was genuinely excited about it. And so when I got laid off over my maternity leave, when my daughter was 5 weeks old, not only was it a shock and a disappointment, that would have been true no matter what season of life it came to me in, but it was this like sacred moment and window of time that is that newborn cuddle phase. And for me, I was learning to be a mother. This was my daughter, my only child, and there was an interruption. And so savoring that moment was harder. Is harder. I think I'm still maybe learning how to learn from that. And in the same sentence, what's come out of it is, I think, a lot of transformation for me personally, emotionally, spiritually. I think it's had me focus a lot on my intention. So the clarity came later. It didn't come immediately. A car just drove by. Sorry about the interruption. I'm outside of my porch. But the clarity came later. It didn't come immediately, but it did come. And I don't think I would have gotten there had I not been laid off and had I not had this in-between season. So I'm curious for you all, like, if you find yourself in an in-between season, how do you find gratitude in that? Or what brings you back to the piece of gratitude or savoring, or maybe just leaning into the in-between? I guess is a prompt I would ask you to consider. I think even just writing that out can be really valuable. You know, something that I have found in my seasons of transition is journaling is something that's really helpful to me. And like actually journaling. So here's another, this is my personal belief, but I find typing to be work. So if I'm trying to be creative, I mean, I definitely am typing things, but I think that writing in a journal with a pen and paper can help you process things more. That's my experience. Yeah, I think, thanks for sharing, Andy. I think harboring anger around a layoff is valid. And, you know, my layoff was in 2023, early 2023. And if I think about it, I I don't think I've fully processed it. I don't think it goes away. I don't think that feeling goes away because the feeling of a layoff is so jarring. And whether you're one person who's been laid off, or if you're part of a team of 100 that's been laid off, or whatever it is, it's really jarring. And I find personally that I don't want to be desensitized to it, right? Like, I've been on the end of I've been laid off. I've been on the end of having to lay people off across my career. Both of it's terrible. All of it's horrible. And I also recognize that it completely blows up your life. You can have clarity. You can be in a job that you hate and be grateful that you're not at that company, but it blows up your life. It isn't like a easy thing to navigate. Yeah, self-talk, saying things out loud. Like I'm talking to someone else, but I'm just talking to myself. I love that. I have a journal of those, Shannon, of just letters to myself, letters that I would write to a friend that I would probably never say to myself, but reminders that I need to have. I appreciate those insights because I think that those things really can help just process. But I don't know. I don't know if I personally have completely let go of those layoffs for myself, because when I think of those seasons, while there was clarity and some calm, there was also chaos. There was also anxiety and fear about what the future is going to look like for my career and for my family. And those things are hard. Yeah, those things are hard. Those things can be hard. So with all that, I've been in these seasons of transition and these seasons of uncertainty and in between. I've kind of shared that journaling is something I go to. I've been trying to gather from other people what other practices that they have, and I have a friend that who likes to type and write, and that's their creative process, and so they have an email address that they have to themselves. So I've heard of people doing this for their children, and they'll grab a Gmail, and it's when my kid turns 18, they'll have all these emails that I've written to them over time, which I think is an incredible idea. I actually might steal it. But I have a friend who has an email that are notes to herself. And so she writes to herself as if she's writing to a friend. I say, we're going through something tough, and here's some things you should know, and here's some reminders about yourself and the goodness that you bring and the good person that you are. And then when she has a rainy day, she reads through her emails. And I think that's lovely because it's kind of she had this idea you're talking about, talking out loud and saying reminders to yourself. So that's one idea that I had heard of. I'm also someone who loves playlists. I, back in the day, had not Zanga, Kazaa. I think it was called Kazaa, which was a music download system. And I would burn CDs. And I took so much pride in those playlists I would put together. I recently found a few of my old burned CDs, and I've been listening to them in my car, and they've been bringing me the utmost joy. But I still really love creating playlists. That's something that brings me a lot of joy and helps me keep centered, especially in times of transition. What I find interesting in this moment is I have all these playlists from these different times of my life, and a lot of them are from those times of transition. And so when I listen to them, years later, it brings me back to that moment. But then I also have this added or changed clarity or perspective that I can listen to these songs and think about different things than I did in that moment. Something that's really helped me. But what else? Is there anything or any practice that helps you stay present or centered or focused in times of transition? If you're in a time of transition, which I think maybe we're all always in a time of transition in some way, shape, or form, lean on those rituals and those practices and those habits. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be like a beautiful notebook. It can be, whatever notebook you have lying around that becomes your journal. or your note taker or your insight and inspiration notebook, but just documenting this time, trying as much as you can to find the bright spots in it if it feels really hard, and navigating it with this sense of awe, maybe? Like, what are you learning? What is this time teaching you? There's this great quote that I've heard Oprah say, I don't know if she's the person that penned it, but she says, there's no such things as mistakes. They're learning opportunities if you're paying attention. And I think about that a lot. Like, what is this moment teaching me? Am I paying attention to this moment? What can I learn from it? How can I change? So I'll leave you with that. I hope that you all have a really wonderful week ahead. It's getting a little chilly here in Minnesota, so I'm leaning into the chilliness with a cozy sweater and making some soups, making some broths. And I'm going to finish journaling for this morning and get my week off to a wonderful start. But it was lovely to spend my Monday morning with you all, and I hope you savor the rest of this day. Talk soon.